Welcome back, welcome back. 2008 seems to be the year when one of the world's most intractable problems just might be resolved. The reunification of the divided island of Cyprus. Greek and Turkish Cypriots have been separated since 1974, when Turkey deployed troops to prevent a coup by Greek Cypriots who wanted union with Greece. More than 30 years on, Cypriots from both sides saw their hopes rise, but just recently when Dimitris Christofias, a more moderate Greek Cypriot on this issue anyway, was elected president with the promise to restart peace talks. But Greek and Turkish Cypriots still have quite a way to go. And joining me now from Nicosia, in Cyprus, the Republic of Cyprus, is the Greek Cypriot government spokesman, Stephanos Stephanou. Welcome to the programme, Mr. Stephanou. Let me start with the basic question of where we are now. Last week, the two leaders met for their second round of talks. How much closer were they at the end? How far away are you think, from the goal of reunification?
If we want to reach to an agreement of the Cyprus problem, it's necessary the two leaders to agree and to discuss on this basis. The reunification of the island on the basis of the bizonal bicommunal federation is the goal. If the two leaders are able to discuss on this basis, so I believe that we can reach to a solution as soon as possible. Of course, there is many problems and many obstacles until to reach to the solution of the Cyprus problem, and most of all, goodwill is needed. And I must say that the Cyprus president, Mr. Christofias, he has this will, and he is ready to work very hard in order to achieve the solution. But firstly, we have to come to a convergence, to seek and to achieve a convergence on substantive issues of the Cyprus problem in order to open the road towards the solution of the Cyprus problem.
And what would you say is the biggest problem that the two sides have got to sort out? Problem on which you're far apart and that is the most crucial problem of all. What's that?
There are some problems. The presence, for example, of the Turkish occupational army, the presence of the settlers, the issue of the properties, the issue of guarantees, and some other issues are very difficult, and they are actually the substantive issues of the Cyprus problem. And I say again that the goal of the today's dialogue is to achieve convergence and not an agreement on these substantive issues and some other substantive issues in order to open the road to the full-fledged negotiations. This is the goal, the duty of the work of the working groups now, and of the technical committees which are handling day-to-day issues in order to develop a climate of trust between the two communities, which is very important in order to work with goodwill in order to achieve the solution of the Cyprus problem.
Thank you very much indeed. On Tuesday, the organisation Save the Children brought out a report entitled No One to Turn To, which highlights the horrific problem of child sexual abuse in conflict zones, perpetrated by the very people sent there to protect them, UN peacekeepers and aid workers. Even when the crimes are uncovered, it seems that the abusers all too often go unpunished. So how widespread is this abuse, and what can be done to stop it? The report was written by Corinna Csaky, and she's with me now. Corinna, that basic question, how widespread did you discover, you and your other workers on the report, how widespread is this abuse?
Well, the children we spoke to on the ground, living in emergencies, were telling us this is a real concern for them. It's important to remember we're talking about a tiny minority of aid workers and peacekeepers, the overwhelming majority of whom are excellent professionals dedicated to saving lives. But what our research did show is that this is a problem for every organisation. Children are telling us that aid workers and peacekeepers from a broad range of different organisations are involved in this type of abuse.
Save the Children comes off well, or lightly, doesn't it, in this report? Just one main incident?
Save the Children certainly doesn't hold itself up as whiter than white, and we're careful to include statistics of our own incidences of abuse. We do deal, sadly, with a very small number of cases every year, and we're trying to be upfront about that and tackle that head on, and we're hoping that other organisations will follow suit.
And do aid workers have, one of the things you're saying really, because of their position, they have an excessive power over their charges, yes?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the children who are most affected by this problem are those that are already extremely vulnerable. We're talking about orphans, children separated from their family, children living on the street, children very, very vulnerable. And it's particularly because of their vulnerability, which means they're unable to speak out about it. One of the key things this report is saying is that there is a chronic silence surrounding the abuse. Almost as worrying as the abuse itself is the fact that the overwhelming majority of the children and their carers we spoke to said they would never report an allegation of abuse, principally because they're scared of the consequences of doing so.
And in terms of what happens next, I mean, in general, if people are found guilty and punished for, the punishment is usually dismissal from the job or whatever. Should, in fact, some of these aid organisations actually initiate prosecutions?
Well, certainly, in Save the Children, for example, if any of our staff have sex with someone under the age of 18, they're immediately dismissed. And if it is a crime in the country where it took place, and if it's in the best interest of the victim, we will refer the perpetrator to the authorities. And it's that kind of clear line of accountability that we'd like every organisation to be taking.
More accountability, more vigilance. Could all of this really reduce the number of cases of child abuse? Could it actually really have a tangible effect, or not?
I think it's really important to remember that this kind of abuse can and must be stopped. It's really not good enough to hold up one's hands and say, we're working in very difficult circumstances and boys will be boys. That's not the right approach. And Save the Children's confident that the recommendations it's putting forward in the report, which were developed with inputs from children around the world, really are the right way forward. And one of those is the idea of a global watchdog to help organisations keep this issue on the top of their list of priorities.
And you made the point earlier on that, you know, most aid workers are not guilty of any of these crimes in a way that we're talking about. But how many people are we talking about here? I mean, how many aid workers are there in the world, and what percentage of them have been guilty of child abuse?
Well, the biggest problem that we're finding at the moment is what's brought out in Save the Children's research is that there is a chronic underreporting of abuse. So statistics of allegations are uncharacteristically low. In Save the Children, for example, we have Save the Children UK alone has 4,500 staff, and we receive only a very small handful of allegations each year. Now, we look at world statistics and we think that they do not reflect the significant levels of abuse that were described by the children in our research. And we really are looking to all organisations to work together to help children speak out about it, because it's only then we're going to be able to stop it, and only then that organisations will be able to recognise how big a problem this really is.
So the problem may, while you're trying to make progress with it, the problem may be worse than we know.
Absolutely.
However bad, it could be worse.
The research shows that the number of allegations that are reported are the tip of the iceberg, and that's what we're most concerned about today. You know, most organisations, they have policies, they've got procedures, but they're very much dependent on children speaking out about the abuse against them. So the challenge of today is how can we support these children to come forward and say when they've been abused?
particularly in some remote location where the abuser is in charge of them and so on. Very good. Thank you very much indeed.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's a sad topic, isn't it? Well, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Will you join me again, please, in 7 days' time for another Frost Over the World. Top of the day.